Welcome back, one and all, to the BUSR Spring 25 Championship. My name's Ardo Dragon, joined by AO. It seems that we've got the wrong names somewhere. I'll try and point them later. But I can assure you my name is RW Dragon. Last week, considering that start being a little bit chaotic, I'll have to say that Baku was quite chaotic as well. A sprint race with 4 DNFs followed up by a full Grand Prix filled with DNFs as well, including last split's champion Cameron crashing out during that first lap. To start off the season. Hopefully, here in Canada, there will be a slightly different story to tell. AO, you were there last week at Baku. I'm sure you can back up the amount of chaos that we had there. Just tell us about the start of the season for quite a few of these drivers.
Well, honestly, I was there for the Baku race, and the start of the season was, to say, indescribable with the amount of carnage that's happened, and many retirements, including a lot of surprises, especially with that of, as you mentioned before, Cameron Soul retiring and Geek having a nightmare of a start to the season as well. And Willie, who's always been a what-if contender, he actually comes in now, heading into Montreal as a championship leader after a brilliant sprint race win and feature race win as well. He held off Joe back in just to seal that win, and he comes in with a large pedigree to his name because he's got about 50 points to his name, which is about Joe is the next one behind him, and he's only got 37. So he comes in with all the advantage with him. And if anything, I'm really looking forward to Montreal. It's going to be our first race of this calendar season as well when we go across the pond, because instead of just having a sprint race and a feature race, it'll just only be a main race now. And Montreal will host 35 laps of very exciting street racing action.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, I've done my usual weekly hop onto the circuit and see how I feel about it. I'm not actually that far off the pace of some of these drivers, as it turns out. Only about 5 seconds off Cameron and Joe in terms of their time. So not as bad as some of the races last season. So I'm definitely improving. But today, in terms of the qualification, they're talking about a 1 minute 8 as we look towards that. There's also sort of a little bit wary of rain if that comes into play. Canada isn't exactly the driest of circuits that we're going to visit during this entire season. It has been known for some torrential rain. Yes, the question mark is not required. But that it could definitely play a part. I mean, I've definitely been known to at the start of these races to be hyping up the fact that weather could be involved, and then we get to the race and there is nothing. But today, I mean, there's a distinct possibility with Canada being one of the places usually on the F1 calendar that rain does sort of trip drivers up, and it could be doing the same here today and, well, tonight. We'll see how they go. Like I said, 1 minute 8 is going to be tricky for a lot of these drivers to catch up with Josh and Cameron and perhaps Joe as well. We could be looking at a 3-way title fight as we go through this entire season. But as we saw last season, Cameron crashing out is not his way of sort of saying, I'm out of the championship picture, because last split, we saw him crash at Zandvoort coming out of turn 1. And he was absolutely fine, won the championship. It did take him until the end of the season to make sure he did, but it's not exact. It might be traditions at this point. I'm thinking of Bottas raising a beer at this point in the Mercedes dressing rooms and saying traditions. We'll see if that happens for Cameron this season. We've still got plenty of racing to do. One more sprint race later on in the season, as well as today's races and 6 more after. So there's definitely plenty of time for all of these guys, including, for me, the drop round still involved. I'm not particularly a big fan of it, as it did sort of help Cameron, but, you know, we're here. Everyone knows it's in the rule set. It's fine.
Yeah, but the thing is, with drivers like Cameron Searle, who always wants to dominate week in, week out, the thing is, having to retire so early on in a feature race means that all the other remaining 7 races now are at risk, because if he tries to use that as a drop round, then every other momentum for him counts. And we could feel a bit of pressure for him because, yes, Cameron Sul did retire in Zandvoort, but that was midway through the season and he was already well ahead of the championship by then. And as you said, he sealed it off by then. So the question is if he'll be able to fend off that pressure for the remaining 7 races, including the one here in Montreal. And as you've mentioned before with the weather, if it does ever rain, then, a lot of these drivers don't actually practice a lot in the rain. But actually in Montreal, we've had wet qualifying 6 months ago in the Summer Championship. And a year before that, the race actually rained progressing through that race. So rain is definitely a factor for these drivers, but it's whether or not they're prepared, it's going to be determined to see how that race happens.
We'll be talking about rain all introduction, but I'll tell you what, it looks glorious out there on track. Extremely sunny, so it might not be a wet qualifying. It might be a little bit of a twist in the tail of the race if it does arrive. So here we are. Lovely. My brain has just gone blank. It's Gilles Villeneuve circuit, isn't it?
Yes, it's the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve.
Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. I believe it's technically a street race as well going around this park. It is sort of like a proper circuit going through here, through a park in Canada. But it is technically a street race going through this circuit. You wouldn't say it, considering the barriers next to it, the walls, they look very proper circuit-like. Is the only way that I can really put it. But it is a street circuit.
Yeah, you were saying it right. It is like Australia. It's effectively a hybrid street circuit where it's got that, permanent circuit mannerisms, characteristics, and it's really well constructed as a street circuit. I've actually been to the Montreal circuit, and it's probably one of my favorite tracks in the F1 calendar.
Well, Ender Epic, it will be starting off the qualifying here around this glorious sunny circuit in Canada. Turning through turns 1, round 2, only dropping to 3rd gear, just like pretty much every single track. Only Monaco you really need to drop below that 3rd gear on the F123. Dropping down the 4th for a moment there, going through that chicane. That has undone me quite a few times. It undid Sebastian Vettel, I believe, in 2017, during that incredible title fight between himself and Lewis Hamilton. As Ender Epic will start to approach this next chicane, famously is caught off Perez, Mr. Checo Perez, off guard in the Red Bull car. I believe he has unfortunately invalidated going through that, maybe cutting a little bit too much on the first part of the chicane. Ender Epic will not get the first time in with that invalidation, and we'll have to see. Let's clear up a few situations here. Meet the teacher, that's Quixotical. Got Shinto in the other AlphaTauri car, that is Aria, and I believe we got Josh's dad is actually Cameron. So the ones we're looking out for is Wooly, Josh's dad, and Joe. So it's an odd one to have in the middle of that title fight, but I have to say, as Ben comes through these final 2 corners, the Wall of Champions does not beckon. It will cross the line with 1 minute 9.6 to kick off qualifying times. Like I said, it's the 1 minute 8 that are going to be the problem for a lot of these drivers. But 1 minute 9 is not too bad for a first run around this circuit. There's a Mad Dog only in the 110s to join the qualifying and will be in P2 to start off with.
It's a very good benchmark for 109, especially when the track is not in its optimal condition and temperature. So the Williams driver will be very happy to be in that position. I was wondering what that keys was because of the different driver names. I'm going to have a brain in his room reading them out.
We're going to have to remember it. It's going to be really tricky to go through that as your first reaction as a caster. Well, scratch that. We do have the championship leader driving through. Will the 1 minute 8 be matched? No, the time by Ben is not matched either. Just over about 2/100ths, I should say. As here comes, I believe, an Ender Epic to cross the line. 1 minute 10.4. It is still Ben in P1. That Williams topping the timing sheets at the moment with a 1 minute 9.6. But still, the championship contenders will continue to come along and set times. Joe, 1 minute 10, the runner-up in last season. back in winter 24 is 1 minute 10 just in P3. So it seems like the 1 minute 8 might be a little bit of a pipe dream. We could be looking at low 1 minute 9s by the end of this qualifying session. So here we have Cameron on the inters, unless that's a glitch in the top right-hand corner of the screen. He could be getting Inter's pole. This is, of course, it's a point and creator series. I'm not sure if he gets the plaudits as much in the BUSR Championship, but 1 minute 13 on Inter's to start things off. He is slower than me on the softs. Thank you very much. That is a good time.
I think we were talking about pressure beforehand, about how Cameron Searle was, coming into Montreal with so much pressure. And the fact that he's started his flying lap on Inters just says it all, really. As I think, is it a glitch? It's not a glitch, actually.
I don't think so. I would have expected this out of Ferrari or McLaren, but not out of Red Bull. Clearly, Christian Horner is absolutely furious. His driver's gone out to set a first lap time on Inters or on a dry track. Josh will cross over line. He's already sort of abandoned that lap and will start a new one. 5-place grid penalty on track. Virulent getting a 5-place grid penalty with a collision against Rage. Rage is already back into the pit lane, so we didn't quite catch what was going on there. And maybe both of them entering the pit lane. There was a collision on entry, and both of them have just simply returned to the pits. They must have had a collision.
Oh, that's really unfortunate. That's going to be huge because a 5 grid penalty, it affects more in a feature race because you're just 5 places down from what your position is. It's going to be, it's really interesting. He is currently, though, on the benchmark, though, for the 15th. So if he drops, so he's not going to drop down even more. He'll probably be in 19th, but as everyone sets their paces, though. Yeah,
everyone's setting their first times out on track. Still missing 3. It's James, Chaotic, and Rage, but I think Rage might need a moment to calm down. Here comes Josh, championship leader, crossing the line, still off the pace. 4 thousandths of a second, though, this time. Taken off his original lap. He's going to have to take another 200ths, as I said, to be able to overtake Ben in the standings. But I'm talking about the championship contenders this season. Joe, Josh, Cameron. What about Ben to start off this Canadian Grand Prix? He's setting a massive benchmark. It's Mark Soria goes over the line. 1 minute 10.6 in P9 there, quite comfortably. About a 2/10 gap over Alpha, who's just started an out lap. So here we go, Quicks. Back in Sector 2. On the softs, into Sector 3, taking 5/10 off his time. We'll approach this huge straight. Great if you have DRS in the race. Big overtaking point as Geek sets the fastest lap. We're not following him at the moment. 1 minute 9.5 to take P1 off of Ben. It's Quicks through the wall of Champion Chicane onto the home stretch. Don't think it is going to be challenging the top spot. It should be a little bit of an improvement. It is 3/10, 1 minute 11. Up to P11 as well. It's not a bad lap from Quicks to get him up the order.
Yeah, Quetzalcoatl did really, really well to get that extra gains that he possibly can. And he's probably going to have enough for another run or two if he so wishes, as Chaotic, having his lap invalidated, goes ahead and crosses the line. The other noteworthy thing as well, because we've seen it before on the starting lap with the McLaren, it was because it was a bit of an issue actually last year. Track limits is going to be a vital play here for the Canadian Grand Prix itself, and having that as a feature race means that those time penalties that these drivers may incur by just going a wheel or two off the line is just going to be very effective.
We'll be looking at the 2 famous chicanes there, the grassy section and the Wall of Champions. I'm calling it the grassy section now because I can't remember the names through there. But I did talk about it as being part of Sebastian Vettel and then Lewis Hamilton's rivalry, where Vettel just took it a little bit too late and had to use the grass, squeezed Hamilton too much, and was given that penalty that gave Hamilton the win around the Canadian Grand Prix in 2017. I'm going to stand by that date. I haven't been corrected by our producer, so going to guess that my knowledge is right on that one. But I think it's those two. Those two were the areas that I really had problems personally on this circuit, cutting it a little bit too close on the first parts of both chicanes. And I think Wall of Champions, you have problems on both the entry and the exit to the chicanes in terms of cutting off a little bit too much on both sides. We have a purple sector from Joe. Just needs to get through a little bit of traffic through this last sort of second to last difficult chicane in towards the hairpin. We'll go down to the long straight. Ben's setting another benchmark time at 1 minute 9.4 as Joe will look to approach that. It's not a top time, not a purple sector in the middle. What will this last sector bring for Joe heading into the Wall of Champions chicane section, into the entry, out onto the straight once more, will approach the line. Will this be the 1 minute 8? No, it is a 1 minute 9.5. I think a moment ago that could have been P1, but no, Ben's new fastest lap takes off about a tenth from Joe. Joe will be sitting in P2, just ahead of Geek in the 1 minute 9.5s, as Josh will be on an out lap to try and chase down all three of those drivers in front.
This is the most exciting qualifying session in the F1 season for as long as I've been commentating, to be honest with you, Alistair. Absolutely remarkable. Oh, we're back over to Cameron. So now he's now got his optimal tires now on, and he's going to go for his first real attempt now in the very dying closing stages. Is he going to make this a five-way battle, or is he going to absolutely dominate the field like he's always done before? We will see as it goes across the front straight on the third sector. A little bit of a toe, and it does improve. Oh my word, it's 300s faster.
I think he'll be tipping his hat towards that Haas just in... Oh, no, it's AlphaTauri just in front. Just saw the sponsor driving by, but a little bit of a tip of the hat towards... Was that Ari or was that Josh? I think it was Josh. He'll be a bit ruining that not being out of the way at that moment as Cameron was chasing down, taking a trip over the grass to sort of let other drivers through, of course. But that is a great lap from Cameron. Lap one on the inters, had to go straight to the softs, and it was very, very good. 1 minute 9.4. We have two drivers in that category, two drivers in the fives, and below that, only one in the sevens. And Enter Epic in the 1 minute 9s as well, with a 1 minute 9.8.
Look at that, between first to sixth, it's only 4/10 between each other. It's super duper close. I've never actually expected for this qualifying session to actually be this close, and let alone for Ben to dominate as quickly as he did, or Geek to have a surprise of form as he did. I'm really surprised. This is going to be very exciting for the final closing minutes.
Being in the pre-race call where everyone was practicing, Geek was actually quite excited about this. He was quite happy with the times that he was hitting in time trial and qualifying practice. So I think it actually comes as no surprise. He's managed to get himself up in P4 in the qualifying. As Cameron does not choose to go into the pits. We'll be looking at another lap here to try and extend that lead at the top of the timesheets, or perhaps just have another lap to get used to the track once more with soft tires on rather than the inters on the car. We'll see how he does going through this first sector, through this first chicane on the circuit. Moving out towards the second. This is another little section that I couldn't quite get right on my time trials, but of course Cameron will do that. Well, he was going to do it with ease, but I think this might be just a cool down lap once more for him, just validating time, and that is Mark. Well, Baby Yagi having a brief spin going through the corners here. He has kept out of the walls, so he should be able to just lick his wounds a little bit and head back into the pits.
God, that was such a surprise. Did you see how much he lost that rear end? Nearly collided in the wall of turn 4, but he just about avoided it and avoided doing a, what was it, Christian Albers 2007 Canadian Grand Prix moment?
I wish I watched F1 way back then to actually be able to support you on that. So I've got the recent history. Don't worry, I've got the recent history down. It's fine. Mad Dog coming through. I think he's got an invalidated time as we switch to Atomic. Currently down in P18 with 1 minute 15. Hopefully trying to chase down Rage in 1 minute 12s, or perhaps leapfrogging and facing It's James in 1 minute 11s. Quite a few drivers sitting there at the moment. A little bit of a tank slapper coming out of that hairpin on towards the straight. We'll lose a little bit of time there going down towards the World Champions chicane. We'll be hitting the 1 minute. So this won't be challenging the top order. It'll be all about where he can place, where he can improve, going down through the final chicane and into the wall. That's going to be the end of that lap for Atomic. Just couldn't quite handle the Wall of Champions. Mad Dog comes through, already an invalidated lap. Not sure, and I think going straight into another, so he will not be saying another lap time here. He's currently in 10th. Championship 3rd place last split, Winter 24. In that last race in Japan, managed to steal that off, but here comes Cameron. Championship not quite as high as he would like after that race 1 crash, but I tell you what, he's paying it back tenfold here in Canada. That will cross the line in the low 1 minute 9s, 109.039, as Josh will not find a lap here, looking towards the end of qualifying. What a great set of laps. It's
we got something on the wall. That's between turns 2 and 3.
I appreciate the production there on Chaotic. You sort of switch away, you see Chaotic spinning. Oh no, we got to go back. Well, Chaotic's fine. Be all right. He's down in 12th. 1 minute 10.8 time on his timing sheet. So not too bad, but definitely will be hoping for a few more improvements. But like you said, it is such a battle between 7th to about... I'll probably include Quicks in that battle as well, down into 13th. And then Jacans and Thomas on the borderline of that.
Yeah. It's just a matter they can just get those improvements as much as they can, though. And but Cameron Soul, though, just swept the fall with everyone else. It's just going to be a testament to see between Ben, Joe, Wooly, Geek, and see if they can make any lasting improvements. Last year, as I realized, has retired, so it was a collision with the wall. Wooly crosses the line. It is an improvement, but it's not enough. 3/10 faster than his previous set, but it's still only 2/10 away from pole. Cameron, I think, may as well have this unless there's going to be any more improvements in the closing stages with only 10 seconds left to go.
Rage, I believe. Oh, Rage retiring from the session. I thought he got into the 1 minute 11s there when it was challenging quite a few drivers. Atomic and Virulent both finishing their qualifying sessions. It's James will be looking to improve the time, get up from P16, we'll get the 1 minute 10, and we'll move up quite...
It's invalidated.
Invalidated. Oh. Tragic moment. Ben taking even more time off will take the P2 away from Josh. Only 16th hundredths of a second. Here comes Alpha. We'll be looking to improve the time. It is not invalidated and will move up to P7. 1 minute 9s there as well. Thomas looking to improve as well. Does so. Takes 2/10 off in the 1 minute 11s. Cameron just a little bit touch slower. Looking to take himself in the 1 minute 8s. Just truly prove how much dominance he has around this circuit and putting his stamp on the championship. But as we watch the last few cross the line, it'll be Chaotic, Quicks, and Dracan setting the last few times. Chaotic will just withdraw, I think, from this lap. Yeah, just seconds slower. Last few to draw in, but there we go. I think that is pretty much everything sorted. Yeah, Quicks out of the lap. Jacan's, yep, out of touch with his time. But that'll be it. That'll be it for qualifying in round 2 of the BUSR Spring 25 Championship. Cameron Searle, welcome back to the top of the timing sheets. The Red Bull being very, very good to him. 1 minute 9, almost dead on around this Canadian Grand Prix circuit. Ben just behind. and Josh, our championship leader in P3. My goodness, this could be a 5-way fight for this race win if we see similar proportions as to what this qualifying has offered.
Absolutely, as well, and as well with off that threshold as well between Ender Epic Alpha and Last Gen Nerd, who used to, use that toe a bit from Baku. They'll be able to use a little bit that coming off the Casino straight and the home straight. So we'll see how much that DRS will be in effect come the Canadian Grand Prix. But other than that, it's a very good performance from Cameron Soul, and if anything, it anticipates a very exciting Canadian Grand Prix ahead of us.
Still, as I said, it is almost a 2/10 lead on that qualifying by Cameron over the rest. Well, over second place, but Ben proving to be a little bit of a contender, maybe a surprise shock having a run at the title. We'll have to see if that form continues over to other circuits, but more importantly, whether that form continues into the upcoming feature race. It is going to be very important for a lot of these drivers. Good start around this Canadian circuit. But beyond that, it is going to be one heck of a Grand Prix. I think we're hyping this up pretty well. I mean, we're looking at 5 drivers who can put in some very, very good times around this circuit. And let's not forget, this is another street circuit. We've come from Baku, a street circuit, over to Canada, a street circuit, a little bit more circuity than perhaps other street circuits, but it still has the walls close in. It still have the sort of the claustrophobia that comes with a lot of the street circuits that we have along with this calendar. Not Canada, we are there, but we got you again. But it is still going to come with its hazards, and we could be seeing crashes out from any of the top players in this race. We could be seeing Cameron having another allergy to turn ones. It has to play out. We have to watch this race, and it could be any one of the top 5 for me that ends up winning it. We're just seeing if whoever makes a mistake and what happens after.
Absolutely. You were talking about the 5 people that were venturing off to win the race, and how Ben is also starting off with a foot in his door for a potential championship contender run, despite having not appeared in Azerbaijan. He comes in almost in the same footing as Cameron Searle does with, his Azerbaijan performance. But also as well, it's been, really, really hard fighting from all these 5, and we can expect that to be translated to the race as well with Ben as well. Geek has also had a bad one at Azerbaijan, so he's looking to carry his championship charge as well, and Willie and Joe are just hoping to fend off as much as they can now, while holding on to their points deficit as much as they can. You are right, though, about Canada, though it is, as you've mentioned before, it's a street circuit, but as we said before, potential for weather still. There's potential for not only for accidents, because the walls are still close in. We were talking about, turns 13, which is the Wall of Champions, and the grassy section, as you call it, turns 3 and 4.
It's my favorite section. It should be named that in future. But I digress.
It's fine. So in that case as well, so the real prime overtaking opportunities are turns 1, and then turns 13, 14, and then the hairpin over at turn, I think it is 10. So for all that in mind, it's going to be that of a very long, hard pace, to be say. Another noteworthy thing I have to mention as well is that last year we've had, or 6 months ago, the previous race was known for a lot of attrition for a lot of safety cars, because of that nature Canada has that's unique in most street circuits. But also as well, track limits as well plays a big part. You've seen a lot of people that had their times invalidated. So in the race, the more times that they do it, the more likely they are to get a time penalty. And that's going to be very crucial, especially to the leaders, because if you're defending or if you're attacking, you need to be aware of these track limits. And Canada's really punishing for that.
I think we might, of course, we'll see slower lap times as people will be looking towards the long game of the race. They'll hold off a little bit in terms of the track limits, of course. They need to be going a little bit slower around the circuit, make sure they get through. But look at that. That is a whole rainbow of tires, if the rainbow was only made up of 3 colors. But it is a whole set of different strategies going into this. I believe soft hards is quite frequently used around this Canadian circuit. We have people using the inverse of that. We do have Cameron and Geek on the same soft tires, so they might have to do a little bit of teammate communication to just ensure that they are not covering each other off in terms of going in towards the pits. We've got hard mediums as suggested as a possible race strategy. We've got medium softs as well, according to the game. And I think, according to most of these drivers, according to what some of the more experienced drivers are, it is looking to be a soft, hard race. But I mean, what you say about safety cars as well is very important here. Using the softs at the start, it could give a lot of people that boost that they really need to begin this race. If there's an early safety car, those softs might end up being an extremely good choice up against the mediums and hards of other drivers. We got 5 red lights and out they go. Off the drivers go for round 2 of the BUSR Spring 25, and Cameron is off like a shot and out of sight of a lot of these drivers very, very quickly. Our fights going back down the grid, but it seems like everyone has approached this quite safely as we head towards turns 3 and 4. Out on the outside goes an AlphaTauri, but up front it will be Cameron running away. Geek is in third. That will be Josh in second. Cameron up front. There's a few little collisions going through another part of the track, but I think everyone just about surviving this first lap so far. It seems like even though this is a street circuit, it does have a little bit more space around it, allowing these drivers to get a little bit more aggressive against each other as we go through this hairpin. A few overtakes going on down the order as Quicks will move up to 12th place, but still up front it's already a 1.6 second gap as Cameron will break away. But has to be said, the fight could be from 2nd to 5th, maybe perhaps even 6th, as Ender Epic is up into P5, challenging what we thought was going to be happening as Baby Yagi in towards the pit lane. Quicks also in the pit. Must be these early collisions going on throughout that lap 1. Not everyone fully surviving, but we do not have any DNFs to begin the Canadian Grand Prix as everyone starts to somewhat settle a little bit on this lap 2 and get themselves into a bit of a rhythm around this circuit.
Cameron Searle, my word, he's almost 2 seconds ahead of him in just 2 laps. He's really going to try and push those soft tires as much as he possibly can, and his hope is for Wooly and Geek, who are both on-softs, to not use that DRS train to catch up to him in the tow. So he's playing like a really quick game, as we can see a bit of lockups here down in turn 10, a little bit of collision on largy bargies, a bit going around there. No, safety car. Atomic Fire's retired.
So as I was saying to start things off, some of these soft tire starters will be maybe, I don't think they'll be hoping for it to be this early, but probably a little bit close to the end of their stints, as it seems like everyone's staying out a little bit too early to head into the pits. But Atomic Fire, a DNF on track. I'm not sure where the incident has taken place, as already the car is being cleaned up. We didn't quite catch where it was, but all of these drivers, some taking a gamble. We do have Alpha here in the pit lane, moving on to a fresh set of mediums, replacing a front wing that must have been damaged. Perhaps he was involved in a little bit of argy-bargy. That might have been part of Atomic, but I won't theorize too much, as we have no idea where it took place. We were watching other fights up and down the order, and all of a sudden we had a safety car on our hands. But the other side of things, yes, it is way too early for any of these drivers, even the soft runners, to really think about pitting for any fresh rubber. It is just about keeping your track position at this moment. But looking down the list, Josh back up into second, Geek in P3, Ben dropping 2 places off the start, Ender Epic up 1, Joe down into P6, dropping 1 place, and Aria up 3 from the start of this race. Big winners for James and Virulent Laurel as well, gaining 4 positions each. So up and down the order, big winners, with the safety car settling the order a little bit. We'll see if they can hold position when we get back to standard racing in probably a few laps' time.
We've been talking about how much the safety car can change the direction of a race. It was the last minute safety car that didn't call out that made Wooly keep his win from Joe. And for Cameron Soul, you probably need to imagine if the safety car is ever going to play to his favor or against his favor. And that is all going to come down to what strategy calls he will make in order to either extend that gap or to hold that lead as much as he possibly can, because Wooly's all know and familiar in the position that Cameron is in back in Azerbaijan, and he played his cards very well to hold off that win from Joe. So the question is if he's going to do the same.
Well, like I was saying, this early in the race, it is just about, all right, keep track position, stay where I am. We're all good. For everyone else in the order, it is still going to be about chilling. I think the hards and mediums might possibly be saying, oh, this might change things a bit. Allow yourself to go a little bit deeper into the race, deeper into the stints on both those tyres. I think the softs, they're not going to be too damaged by being behind the safety car. It will give them a moment to just cool down the tyres a bit. I think the drivers I was sitting in voice chat with were talking about the rears having a little bit higher degradation, getting a little bit higher in terms of the temperatures. So there'll be a time to sort of cool down those rears, get back into full pace racing. So it will be Cameron to control the race pace as the safety car comes in this lap. On towards lap 5, taking it slow, heading towards the Wall of Champions. Now, Ao, in your opinion, where is going to be the best point to go for it? I mean, down this long straight, you wouldn't really want to go for it. Is it going to be just straight out of the Wall of Champions chicane, just to send it down the home stretch?
He's really going to keep it as late as possible. That's the thing with Cameron Searle's starts. He always keeps it as late as possible. And sometimes that works for his favor, and sometimes it doesn't. And he's probably going to try and take advantage of that dirty air from there it is, the Wall of Champions now. Because he can extend his lead as much as he possibly can. Lap 4 of the Canadian Grand Prix resumes, and Cameron Searle still leads. But Willie Blobs just about slowly catches up, though.
Won't be the rocket ship start that he had to start this Grand Prix. Josh will stay behind him 5/10. The restart hasn't had any casualties yet. A few driver changes and swaps. Maybe Yagi overtaking. Virulent Laurel unfortunately slipping down the order as Rage will chase down Cameron. Oh, he's lost it! Going down, let's brief fight with Geek as Geek will move up into P2. Great spot. I was looking at the changes going on down below, but Josh will be up on P1.
It was turn 3 and 4. He just got too much curb out there, and he had a bit of a tank slapper. So he's dropped 2 positions. That puts that Geek into second and Willie into first. But look at that. It's now a full second between Willie and Cameron. That's how much that mistake has costed Cameron. And now he's back into the pecking order of this leadership fight.
Well, Josh will have to try and break this tie between himself and Geek, whereas Geek and Cameron will be working together down into the Wall of Champions chicane. They won't be going side by side. Cameron will just pull out at the last second, allow Geek to move through. That is a new fastest lap, 1 minute 13.0, set by Josh. Considering how the season played out last time, it is so important to get those extra points. And I tell you what, if that fastest lap is carried on a brief moment of collision going through that turn 3 chicane occurring. It's James, but it's so important for this entire season that you just get every single point that you can, especially when you're in a title fight. With Cameron Searle be coming after Josh this entire race as long as he can get past Geek.
Yeah, Geek and Cameron are both in a similar position. In fact, Cameron's got more points than Geek coming out of Azerbaijan, so he's going to hope to defend that as much as he can as attention towards the back, towards a very exciting fight between Chaotic, Thomas, and Alpha. Alpha, podium Sarah, last time round, goes down the inside of turn 10. Slight luck up, but I think it just about works. And it's James also coming in along with that fight for 10th. Great move by Alpha up into P11.
I think the medium tyres helping out, had to change the front wing. Geek would lose the position going into the Wall of Champions, I believe. There it is, as Cameron will now start the process. I would say it might be a long and arduous one, but with the lap times like 1 minute 12.6, taking 5/10 off the previous fastest, it is not going to be a long and arduous challenge for Cameron to take this P1 away from Josh. It'll be a brief interlude where someone else is on top of the standings, as Cameron will continue to chase down Josh, heading through corners. A few collisions going on. Alpha getting a 3-second time penalty. I think that is going to be about the track limits that we talked about being a problem before the start of this race. That is going to be the first penalty handed out to a driver in this race. Of course, depending on what happened to Atomic, there could be a steward's inquiry about that later on. And there's a second. Thomas getting 3 seconds as well. Oh my goodness, this Canadian Grand Prix circuit is quite dangerous. Those warnings to build up. Here we go. It's going to be 1 lap from getting into P2. It is going to be 1 lap getting into P1. Cameron Searle on that long straight will be taking over. Keeps it in the Wall of Champions. And it will look like Cameron will start to run away. Now here is going to be the start of the long and arduous task for Cameron to build that gap and get away from Josh behind, as we continue to have 3-second time penalties raining down on our competitors. Each one most likely about just cutting a little bit too much of the chicanes around this circuit.
So early on, though, at lap 8, though, we can expect that to increase more and more as they go on, but they have to be really careful with the track limits, otherwise that's really going to build up. And for 35 laps, if it's a 20-second time penalty that comes into the end of it, well, you're definitely going to lose some positions by the end of it. But 3, you're somewhat relatively safe, unless if you're in a battle. So keep an eye out for those penalties, because they could be a very big contributing factor towards how these people, fight, and how like on the edge of the rules they can be to try and claw those positions up in Montreal. Wooly has 1.3 seconds away from Cameron, so Cameron has actually done his job well, and Geek, just about with the DRS, goes into turns 13 and 12 and 13 and holds off Geek as much as he possibly can. BB Yagi with the 5-second time penalty. He holds on to P2 now, so they're going to each of them, between Geek, Wooly, and maybe Ben, if he goes in for P2, they'll probably trade places to see how much time they can claw into Cameron Searle, because he's going to be pulling away as fast as he can. As a bit side by side going over through turn 2 between Chaotic and Thomas. Thomas goes a little bit sideways and loses the position over to Chaotic up into P12. It's an 11 and 12 for the Ferraris.
Yeah. A little bit wide coming through turns 3 and 4 is... The fight is not quite over for Thomas, keeping Chaotic quite humble going through these sections. A little bit of a tank slapper, unless that was a little bit of netcode lag to cause a little bit of sideways movement. Heading into another chicane, and this could be the chance for Thomas to come back through. A little bit of a dive bomb being offered as we head towards the chicane. Will not decide to take it, just relaxing. I tell you what, who does take that opportunity? Baby Aggie going down the inside will take the position from his teammate. The 2 Mercedes drivers having a brief moment of collision as they head towards the home stretch of this lap, and moving out from behind, Baby Yagi will overtake Chaotic, and so will Thomas. Both of them getting through. Chaotic being handed another 3-second time penalty. You talked about these time penalties building up for all these drivers and possibly losing positions. Perhaps you won't even lose positions as long as you keep it to 3 seconds, considering the number that are being handed out to all these drivers. You might be even safe with just taking a few of your warnings out of your pocket and using them as free lap time at some points. If you see a few drivers getting 3 seconds, 6 seconds in front of you, as the fights will still continue up and down the order. Last Gen Newt, I believe it was one of the amazing rookies that we had last season, as Geek, Ben, and Josh will continue to fight down the order. And Cameron's already gone away. 2.5 seconds. I think this was something that Josh feared, as Ben will move up into P2, using the DRS, using the slipstream, heading into the Wall of Champions, and will stay in front, getting a great exit from that chicane, and will be hopefully chasing after Cameron just a little bit in this race. He did put in some fantastic qualifying laps, but it wasn't quite enough against Cameron in the end. But even now, the gap is still building up. 2.6 seconds for Cameron, 2.7, 2.8 It's an ever-growing gap between himself and the rest of the field.
Yeah, definitely. You could just see Joe, who used to be about 1.5 seconds behind from this crowd, is caught up now. So this is going to be a potential 5-way now for P2, because Enderep is right in. Even though he's got the 3-second time penalty, he'll be able to get on track position P2 if he can overtake, or if the cars around him, out of desperation, also get track limit penalties as well. Anything can really happen here in Canada, and a five car battle already this early for P2 is honestly really remarkable.
It's like a 2023 season where Verstappen was winning every race. The only excitement was who was getting second, and it seems to be the case with this Canadian Grand Prix. It seems to be evolving as Geek will be the first of the top order, if we exclude Ender Epic and Aria, to get a 3-second time penalty. Just Joe has also slipped down. I think a brief mistake coming through. He's dropping down the order. Baby Yagi getting 3 seconds as well here. As all of these drivers, slowly but surely, that timesheet is going to get filled up with 3-second time penalties. I think one of the two drivers who might be immune, there's a few collisions coming through between an Alpine and a Mercedes. And it will be Mercedes just getting enough of an exit. No, Jacan's coming back at Thomas. It will be through the chicane. It could get quite messy between these two drivers. No, it stays clean enough. And Thomas will remain in P13 with Jacan's just behind. And I tell you what, Chaotic will slowly get involved with that fight. And Thomas also becomes the first driver with 6 seconds time penalty on the timing sheet as it gets a little bit messy. 3 wide going through this chicane, and then 2 drivers have to go wide, one across it to the wall. Thomas off the track, and they've just all somehow survived in a really bad situation going 3 wide there. But yeah, there we go. I think this is going to be expected from all of these drivers, just collecting 3-second time penalties up and down the order, where we have moments of excitement like that with drivers going 3 wide, desperate to gain extra position on track. But I'll tell you what, from 10th to 14th, it's just a standard race between all those drivers with just consistent 3-second time penalties.
Yep, it's true. It is absolutely true. Apart from Area and Thomas, yeah, everyone else has got more or less 3-second time penalties. But that's curious though, because Geek has got a 3-second time penalty as well as Ender. So that means that Ben and Wooly are also at much of a risk as much as Geek is, and Joe is, and Area is as well. Joe has actually dropped a place now, down in P7. Didn't realize.
No, I just want to check what tyres everyone is on in that top order. There we go. Joe is on the hard, so eventually he's going to start clawing back time. And tell you what, Ben could be in a decent position here on those hards. He'll be clawing back time as well towards Cameron, who will need to pit earlier on those soft tyres. Geek will also have to do the same. He'll have to watch out for what Cameron is doing to make sure that there is no crossover there and doesn't affect his race. Ender Epic on the mediums, he'll be sort of somewhere floating in between. Aria as well, Josh on the softs. So I think as soon as Cameron pits, I can imagine Josh doing the opposite. Josh will be watching the timesheet, seeing where Cameron comes in, and perhaps doing the opposite when it comes to the end of the stint. As there we go, Quick's getting a 3-second time penalty, and it's a beautiful black and yellow flag order going down from 10th to 16th for all those drivers. I wonder who will survive in terms of not getting time penalties through this, as Jacans will be the first one, I would say, to have a proper pit stop. So it looks like, I believe he was on softs before, so it looks like it's going to be close to time for the rest of these soft runners to move on to new tyres, move on to the hards. Jackan's chosen mediums, so we'll see if there'll be another stop in this race for him, or those mediums he wants to take towards the end of this 35-lap race.
You can see Ben there, he's under challenge because that hard tire is not coming optimal, but Geek should be worried as well because those softs are really wearing out. The championship leader heads now into the pits. I think those softs are pretty much gone, so keep an eye on Geek for how much time he'll lose as he goes on and brings on some fresh mediums. So he'll hoping to see the race to the end of it with those tire compounds.
Oh, we'll have to find out. I mean, my guess is that there won't be a medium to softs run. These mediums might be lasting to the end. They get these softs going about 15 laps, so another 20 on the mediums doesn't seem like a stretch. We'll have to see. Once again, we have the question on safety cars coming through and whether we'll see some of that. 6 seconds for Geek. We're going around this circuit. A little fight brewing here for Josh, who's just coming out of the pit lane. Needs to make up the time. Will look to get past Baby Yagi around this circuit through the chicane and does so very, very cleanly. The fresh tyres doing a lot of good for him. And they will need to continue to fly through this field to make up a little bit of time. Cameron, it looks like, still not yet choosing to pit. Will stay out a little bit longer on the soft tyres and perhaps make it an easier run to the end on the mediums, which is quite a danger for every other driver in this field, as Geek will be looking to take over Ben here. So they both of them fight through the first few turns towards the chicane at turns 3 and 4. Geek a little bit too far back to make any sort of attack, but will just continue to stick behind. This will be nice on the tyres on his car. The softs will last a little bit longer. No need to exude a little bit more pressure on the wheels, as long as you sort of have a little bit of a train to stick behind, a little bit, save a little bit of ERS, get the DRS. Just wait behind Ben and let him drag you around the circuit. This will do fine for Geek. It's all going to be all about that 6-second time penalty that he has hanging over his head at the moment, as Rage will also join in on the festivities with another 3 seconds, up to 6 seconds now in P14.
It's going to be interesting to see how soon Geek will pit soon, because you're just looking at the progress Alpha is doing. He got a bit held up there by by the Mercedes, but he's up into 10th though, so he's going to try and do everything that he possibly can. And there he is. Geek's now into the pits, so we're going to see where he comes out in comparison to Wooly and see if that undercut for Wooly has worked. It's a quick pit stop there from the Red Bull crew, and we will see in a very few moments.
That was Aria as well, moving into the pits as Josh will move up. That's a new fastest lap, 112.6 to cut through the field. As Geek will exit in P8, 2 seconds behind, I should say. Josh is 9 seconds behind last gen Newton P6, but Geek only 3 seconds thereabouts behind Josh. Has another pit for Chaotic. Will exit in P17. So here we go. This is a battle for P2. 6 tenths in it, with one long straight. DRS should open for Ender Epic here, heading towards the Wall of Champions. Now, it will depend on whether both these drivers decide to pit. I believe Ender Epic on the mediums. Ben might be moving into the pit lane here. No, will move out into the chicane. I believe he's on hard, so of course he hasn't come into the pit lane. There we go. Cameron making the move now. Has completed the pit. Mad Dog getting the 3-second time penalty as well. Where is Cameron going to end up? I think just in front of Josh. It will move into, I believe, a net P2 in this race. Another fastest lap, 1 minute 12, 2 tenths off. We'll be chasing down Cameron now. Cameron needs to warm up these tyres quickly, as quick as he can. Otherwise, Josh will be licking his lips, thinking this could be the moment that I overtake for this race. He is still sitting a little bit far behind. 1 minute 6 at the 1 second 6 to catch up to Cameron. As Alpha also 3-second time penalty. What a collection we have on this timing sheet of black and white flags.
Wooly was pushing to his absolute limits to try and catch up to Cameron, but I don't think it's working. He's slowly lost 2 tenths out there from the third sector, but he's going to try and hope to see with that big tire advantage that he'll be able to try to get in with that DRS range of Cameron, because it's really all that he can do in order to keep this race win hopes alive. Either that or a potential safety car, which is, not out of the question, because there's been a little bit of carnage a little bit midway through, just not big enough to cause a safety car. But talk about Ben, though. On the hards compared to the mediums, he's fending off Ender Epic very well for the last few laps.
Absolutely. And that is only going to benefit him. he'll most likely be looking. Both these drivers will probably be looking to move onto the softs soon. Ender Epic, of course, a little bit sooner than Ben. They have started to generate a 5-second gap between themselves and Joe, who's in P3. Mad Dog behind in P4, Ender Epic in P5. Then there's a small gap between Last Gen Newt and Cameron. He's slowly starting to close, slowly but surely. Cameron's starting to get the rhythm, the heat into towards the tyres, and we'll be looking to cut through the traffic here and just build the gap once more to Josh. Another safety car will come out. There is no DNFs on the timesheet. This is going to be just a massive collision. Debris on track. There's a spin. I believe that is Virulent having a moment at the hairpin and might have brought out this safety car on track. I'm just looking for other damage. That is a wing gone. Has it been a collision with someone else to cause that? That is a great moment for Ben. This is the opportune time for a free pit stop. Cameron will still move up into the top spots. I think just not quite enough of a gap to make it super comfortable for Ben, but still will remain in a podium position with a free pit stop to use. And the same can be said for Ender Epic, who's moving on to hards for the rest of this. Mad Dog also taking a moment. Last Gen Newt as well. Joe in the pit lane as well. All new tyres for these drivers. And Baby Yagi 2 in P10 will be also in the pit, choosing to pick up new tyres for the rest of this race.
We were talking about before about how safety cars can be very beneficial to certain drivers. I can safely say Cameron Searle is the biggest winner of this safety car coming out, having just pitted before the safety car period, and now he's on 3 laps, fresher tires than Wooly is. It really is his race to lose, isn't it?
Yeah, at this position it is. There is still a small question mark possibly with Ben. I mean, is the 2-lap fresher tires? I'm not sure if that is going to be enough of a delta between the two of them. I think if the safety car came out another 2-3 laps later, there could be an opportunity for Ben there. But I think with the way that Cameron has learned to take care of the tyres a little bit more around this circuit, I think he'll be fine for this last 15 or so laps of this race. We're still going to cut that time down. There's probably still going to be maybe another 2 laps under this safety car, so we'll be looking at the last 13 laps in race conditions. That should be enough to be held off. And Cameron, yeah, I think Cameron should win this race in the end.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, Cameron. Well done for winning the Canadian Grand Prix.
All right, cut off the stream now. We're all good. We're done. We're done for today. Well done,
unless
everyone.
He does last year. He could do it last year, and he could disconnect under the safety car, because that's what happened. That's what prevented him from winning the Canadian Grand Prix last time round. So
it's what prevented him from winning Miami as well last split. So it could be a certain amount of permutations that happen to Cameron at the moment. It is true. We still have another 14 laps of racing to conduct. So there is still time for mistakes to be made. I mean, he didn't waste much time in the feature race around Baku last week. Only on the first lap, finding a way to crash into a wall. But this time, he's looked assured around the Canadian Grand Prix circuit. I think a crash might be out of the question. It is going to be about wheel disconnects, perhaps even just simply moments around this track where the tyres get a little bit too warm, has a tank slapper, slides away a little bit. I mean, there's still a certain combination of things that could lead to a Josh victory, perhaps a Ben victory as well. Those newer tyres definitely having enough of a delta over Josh, with 5 laps fresher, could be big for Ben in terms of the rest of this championship and this race and this fight. So we'll have to see when the safety car comes in, but looks like we'll be spending another lap underneath these conditions, these drivers, to catch up and get into the queue.
Still holding your breath here. There's still many positions available up for open. No podium position, safe to say, is safe, frankly. anywhere between first all the way down to, did I ever say seventh or even ninth, even though Geek has dropped some places and has the penalties as well added. He still has a good chance of getting on track to podium as well. And, another thing must say, only 6 drivers are the only people that don't have time penalties, and we're only more than halfway through.
Chicanes and Laurel without time penalties. Got Last Gen New and Joe also without time penalties, and then that top 3 who have just, tell you what, that the top order have looked assured around this circuit. Even Ender Epic, who does have the 3-second time penalty, has been absolutely fine going around this circuit. The safety car will be in this lap, everyone in queue, everyone ready to go. I think crashes between the top order will be out the question. They are safe enough drivers to keep it just safe and careful between them. I don't think that's going to be the question. It's going to be about the tyres, in my opinion, whether Cameron can be the tyre whisperer. Keep those 2-lap fresher tyres over Ben and Last Gen New Joe. If he keeps them nice and fresh, he'll be fine. But I tell you what, I think he can just sort this out on raw pace, and he'll be controlling this restart. Will it go at the same point as he did last time, heading into the Champions chicane? He does so. The Wall of Champions does not beckon for any of these drivers going through it first, as Josh will be just behind on the restart, 4/10ths back, as he'll be chasing down Cameron here to start off things. It'll be a massive overtake to start off this safety car restart, but it won't happen for quite some time, as Cameron is already pulling out an 8/10th lap, and Ben will be chasing down Josh now. He'll have to defend from him first. He'll be thinking about the drivers challenging from behind rather than challenging the one up front. Chaotic 3-second time penalty. Through goes Joe and through this chicane. Past Last Gen New will now chase down Ender Epic in P4, but this podium positions are starting to have a little bit of separation, as the rest behind will start fighting. Jacan's getting his penalty added to the time. 5-second time penalty here. Aria dropping below Mad Dog as this fight will continue heading in towards the chicane. Aria looking to go down the inside. Can't find enough space and can't find enough traction to get past his rival for P7 as we go down this long straight towards the Wall of Champions chicane. Through goes Ben past Josh as this P2 driver. He got P2 through qualifying. He'll look to try and get a few fast laps over Cameron, but I tell you what, that is blistering pace going through from the current champion, reigning and defending. He'll need to get himself this win to get himself back into the fight, but he's doing just that with a 2-second gap. It's all about keeping it now. Don't have moments going around this circuit. Keep it safe. Keep it clean, and Cameron will take this home.
Absolutely, my word, 1 minute 10. That is the blitz.
We have another safety car coming out for these drivers.
Is that turn? It's turn 5, is it? Yeah, he's gone off at turn 5. That is huge. Wow. That's another safety car. That's the 3rd safety car that we have in this Grand Prix. And Cameron's push has now been dwindled again. And this time, instead of defending from Willie, he'll have to defend from Ben this time. And he's on fresher tires than Cameron is.
Then it comes into question, how much of these drivers been pushing those tires through these restarts? Who's in a better position there? I think arguably Ben, being able to follow a driver through, it does save the tires just a little bit, a tiny bit. I think Cameron is still a bit of a tire whisperer. He'll keep them nice and in a good range. But he does have the restart. He does have the clean air in front of him that he has to do the pushing into. So it is tricky to say. I think Ben with the slightly fresher tires might be a bigger challenge than Josh was on the slightly older mediums. Looks like no one is going to the pits to try and make the most of this new restart on lap 25. It will be another maybe 2 laps under this safety car before everyone catches up once more and we can go for a restart. But Cameron, I wonder what he's saying in voice chat. over this. It is a tricky situation in terms of tactics, but he's choosing to go for track position. I think everyone is, just to keep things as it is at the moment. There's so many penalties on the track right now. I think coming towards the last 10 laps, keeping track position is going to be the better option for everyone.
BUSR fans, take a shot every time Alistair says Cameron is a tyre whisperer.
You're at 2 shots. You shouldn't be too far deep yet. So you should be absolute 3.
Yeah.
Tyre whisperer, tyre whisperer, tyre whisperer. Line them up. And tell you what, Cameron might be saying the same thing. Got championship contenders all behind me, but line them up. I'll knock him down. Ben will be the next one. He is going to try and line up and just leave in the dust. Here as we approach the restart. I think everyone is pretty much at the back of the queue. It should be this upcoming lap, perhaps the next one, that we restart and go green flag racing once more. But AO, in this position, I think Cameron still has the advantage here. Who else do you think is going to really gain in this restart?
Joe did really good having started in P7 and get himself up into P5, so you can expect to see him do more daredevil overtakes once again. He's always been really good on safety car restarts. Have a look for Azerbaijan, for instance. So I can expect him to probably climb up some positions and maybe potentially get into the podium in the final stages. So I don't rule out him, I would say.
I think the last previous safety car before this, he really had a great advantage from that. I think he just pit just before it, and then everyone else pitted under that safety car. So he just leapt up quite a few places up into P5 and got himself into a good position. He will be on similar age tyres between himself and Ender Epic. I think Ender opted for the hards just to ensure he could just really push towards the end of this race. So he does have a slight advantage in that. I think the mediums are always going to be fine underneath that last safety car and just before it. So here we go again. Cameron, it's just a bit of deja vu. Got a third time that he's taking us through a safety car restart, and I think he'll pretty much be going for the same point in time to restart things. Just before the chicane, he'll go for it, and I think he does a little bit earlier this time, heading in towards the chicane. Ben will follow through, has dropped back a little bit further, and Josh getting a 3-second time penalty just behind. That is massive for everyone behind in this championship fight. The leader getting a 3-second time penalty that could drop him down the list quite far. Cameron dropping back. Ben, 5/10. This fresher tyres not quite working for him just yet. Josh will be chasing down all of them. Geek getting another 3 seconds. Joe keeping it clean as Ender Epic and Josh both with time penalties in front. As long as he keeps it close between those two, he could be looking at a podium position around the Canadian circuit, but I don't think he'll be happy with that as he looks to be lining up a move against Ender Epic here. We'll keep it close behind. A 2/10 gap heading towards the chicane. Could be looking at a dive bomb as he lines it up and should be going for it. We have switched at the wrong time for that, but someone else has gone for a dive bomb. It is Geek. Penalties, a few collisions going on just down the order. I think that's Baby Yagi really getting spun out. An unfortunate situation for him. Joe hasn't lined up the move, but it looks like the wrong timing for quite a few drivers behind going for the similar dive bomb. As just a few collisions being carried out. And it looks like Baby Yagi really suffering and dropping down the order because of it. Because of it.
You look ahead, Ben is actually within the DRS DRS time.
That's huge.
That's going to be huge. That's huge. That's the tire age to its advantage, and we've got another collision, I think, on the back.
Yellow in sector 1.
That's Thomas. Thomas is involved in a collision, I believe. Yeah, Keo's got a tempo. Yeah, there you go. So that's going to be big. No safety car. I don't think they'll call a safety car this late in. But look at Ben, though. He's been 3/10. He's 3/10. So Cameron's lead is not actually all that easy going to be for him. He's going to have to defend from Ben, who's on much fresher tires than him in the closing stages.
No safety car there is huge for Ben. Last 7 laps to tick down. Ben just needs to stay within this DRS section as we move towards it. Down this straight, it is huge. We'll have the slipstream. We'll have the DRS. Does he want to go for the move or just hold back for a moment? It looks like he is lining it up going to this corner. No, he just holds back for a moment. Make sure to keep Cameron humble for your last few laps and pick your moment correctly. You do not want to dive bomb at a time. I forgot his DRS wasn't enabled yet, but there we go. Virulent Laurel is out of the session. Another safety car. Oh goodness, the hairpin has taken out Virulent Laurel from the competition, and that is just poor timing for Ben. He was really in a fantastic position to go after Cameron in the remaining laps. Oh, whether this is a blessing or disguise, I do not know. If he does keep it that close, it does limit the number of laps he can make the move, but perhaps that sort of adrenaline rush to chase down Cameron is what he needs to make the overtake proper. But this is yet another safety car coming out for all of these drivers. My goodness, we won't have many laps under racing conditions at all. I think maybe the last 4 laps we'll have. That will be 4 chances for Ben to make the overtake. Actually, with DRS missing, which I think is what he really needs, is going to be 2. It is going to be 2 laps under racing conditions, I think, for Ben to make that overtake and take the win away from Cameron.
The thing for Ben, though, is that he's fine. He's got P2. P2 is more or less sealed for him. He doesn't need to defend that much from Willie or Ender. And the fact that he's on fresher tires compared to them as well means that he's already going to be faster off the safety car restart line than those 2 are. However, Willie and Ender need to be worried about Joe behind because, as we've mentioned before, Joe is currently is on set for counting all the penalties, on track for 3rd. And Last Gen knew it as well, can also take away those positions for P4 as well. So it's interesting to keep an eye out for those 2 as well. But, you know, we were talking about that before about Mad Dog and Willie, but Willie's just got 3-second time bells as well as Mad Dog. So anyone is susceptible to these time penalties whatsoever, including those that I aforementioned with Joe and Newt.
So, I think it would be maybe 2 more laps under the safety car. Waiting for a few people to catch up at the back of the queue. But Joe, I think Joe, we talked about could be having a good time under these safety cars. Hasn't quite made the most of it yet. He did seem to be lining up moves against Ender Epic to take P4 on track and not just having to use the penalties. He'll still be lining this up, I think. It is... Well, perhaps with the last few laps to tick down, he might not be lining it up at all. He might be just thinking, all right, just keep Mad Dog behind, keep both Wooly and Ender Epic within 3 seconds, and I'm golden. I'll take a podium position in terms of this race and get some points on Josh as well. So perhaps Joe might just relax these last few laps and just think, all right, track position, keep that, all good. I think for the rest of the drivers, I think Mad Dog will be wanting to try and get overtake or maybe just push everything along so he can get a 3-second gap over Last Gen Newt and make sure he ends up at P6 rather than dropping down to P7. I think everyone else below keep the penalties to a minimum and try and keep that track position because there is not going to be much time to generate a gap between your rivals behind. And with 16 drivers still alive in this race, there's only going to be one spot that does not get points in the end. It's going to be 16th, so you don't want to end up there and end up missing out on a small points haul.
Yeah, Thomas with 12 seconds time penalty, though, I think. Unless if Chaotic gets a 12-second time penalty himself or anyone else gets a retirement, somehow in the closing stages of this race. And we know it was impossible after Atomic and Alpha, but Laurel, she's retired in the end, so anyone's got a chance to retire. Safety car is going to be in this lap, so Cameron Soule will have to once again do another stormbreaker of safety car restart. He's been very good at it, having to go off very late in the Wall of Champions and having been very, inconsiderate. It's a bit foggy out in the clouds as well, so potential for rain in the closing stages would be very funny. But
Cameron going through the last lap in the Wall of Champions, and the few 5 droplets of rain just getting onto the tires and spitting him out. Oh, that could be a story to tell from this Canadian Grand Prix. But at the moment, it looks like Cameron is going early once more out towards the Wall of Champions chicane. Ben will survive. Cameron will survive. Mad Dog won't. Gets another 3-second time penalty on time, and there'll be quite a few more added at the same time. A few warnings building up as Joe will get his first 3 seconds to add on. Ender Epic still having 6 seconds, so he should be fine against him. Thomas getting another 3 seconds. A few changes to the order at the lower end of the spectrum, but still Ben has just lost touch. That safety car, that charge, that challenge against Cameron might have let this race go for him. The last few laps to tick down. Cameron has gotten out of DRS range. It won't matter as DRS won't be enabled until lap 34, I think. There's a few drivers having a few mistakes going on. There's getting overtake. Yeah, 4 drivers very, very close together as they'll be going down towards the hairpin. And that is a very, very early break going into this hairpin as 2 drivers again contact this early on in this race. Joe and Ender Epic having a fight up front. A few changes in position going down the home stretch towards the Wall of Champions. Joe on the edge and will stay out of the wall and stays up front. P4 for Joe. And with that 3-second time penalty, he can chase down Josh. He needs to chase down Josh for the podium now. There's 1 second and 1.3 seconds ahead. Cameron pulls out the gap now. He can relax a little bit more once again. Oh, it was dicey during the previous safety car where Ben closed it down and was just trailing by 5/10. Now it's a little bit more comfortable. And I think the last twist in the tail we could possibly see is Cameron getting a sudden 3 seconds as well as Joe. But at the moment, the fight is here. Down the order, the fight is here with Joe and Josh fighting for position. We got Ender Epic also putting a lot of pressure and will look to go down the inside towards the hairpin. A huge dive bomb that does get him ahead for a moment. It's all about the traction, getting the power down, and Joe is being so much better at that as he gets ahead of Ender Epic. But that is a little bit of time taken off and between himself and Josh as we head towards the chicane. Another moment. No, Ender Epic decides to just relax for a moment, and that is World Champions for Joe. There goes his wing as well. The Wall of Champions does claim a victim during this race, and it is Joe. The wing is gone. I think Ender Epic might have taken a little bit of damage as well. I think that is an end plate on the right side of the wing gone as well. He takes a little bit of collateral during that entire process and ends up Aria could move past both of them here. Does get past one. Could get past Joe here as well as that front wing is gone. Mad Dog moves up to P4 and will start the process. Is his turn to try and chase down Josh. A 2-second gap. Cameron's wondering what is going on back there as Joe can't get through the chicane, has to move off track. Oh, Joe, it was such a good Grand Prix for him. It's made the use of some great strategic positions to move up the order. Unfortunately, has come undone with one of the most famous turns in Formula One. It's taken his front wing. He'll need to pit this lap and move further down the order. I think he's fortunate that there are quite a few penalties going on, but I think even then, if he does come into the pit, he's going to drop back far behind anyone and just decides to stay out at this point.
It's unfortunate. Ironically, it's taken a hit on his championship percentages. So bad for him. It was really close, almost on the chance of a podium to fend off from Wooly, but yeah, you can see in the back there for Ender, who used to be all up there. He's now down in 9th, so he's taken damage as well from that Joe Wall of Champions collision. I think Joe's just trying to finish the points as much as he possibly can by finishing ahead with the 6-second time penalty that he adds. He's probably going to drop a little back. Oh no, he doesn't, because everyone has the 6 seconds.
I think there'll be 3 people smiling. Last gen Newt having a little bit of advantage. Ben, no penalties, but 2 seconds behind. But the biggest grin on someone's face is going to be on Cameron. Out of the race in Baku, still has one last chicane to take down. The championship winner last time, defending his title, will survive the Wall of Champions and survive the last drops of rain as he wins the Canadian Grand Prix. Ben finishes in P2. Where will Last Gen New end up? As both on track, he is behind. He gets the P3. A little bit of drama to end this race. A touch of rain that we were talking about, but not enough to cause many problems, it would seem. But just one more bit of damage as Thomas ends up in the wall. But he'll drive over the line to finish the Canadian Grand Prix with 15 seconds. A little bit of burnout. But it's all about this man. Out in Baku, but wins in Canada. The championship charges on once more. Cameron wins the Canadian Grand Prix.
It was a really good performance from him. Fended off 5 potential race winners, often qualifying to win qualifying pole by 2/10, and then we were talking about absolute peak safety car. We were talking about peak safety car restarts and absolute. Well, a bit of luck as well, but really good tire strategy. And there was rain, but it was only for the last few corners. It was funny. You said, we hope if there was 5 droplets of rain that he would crash in the Wall of Champions, but even he survived that.
Yeah, so, clearly only 4 droplets of rain actually touched his tires. The 5th one might have been the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were, and sent him into the wall. But he'll be fine. He'll be enjoying the champagne on the podium. And there we have it, the Canadian Grand Prix, wrapped up, done and dusted. What a race. What a fight. I think so much drama up and down the field. And there you go. That's what straight race is all about. A little bit of chaos, a few safety cars. But in the end, let's be honest, the right driver won that. P1 in qualifying, he was fantastic throughout. I think there was only one proper challenger in that entire race, and that was Ben. I think 4th safety car is great. It's great listing that number. The 4th safety car didn't happen. I think Ben could have reeled him in. I think Ben could have reeled it in, used the home straight with the DRS advantage, got in front, and who knows? We could be talking about an incredible win for Ben at this point in time if that last safety car didn't happen and gave Cameron just a moment to reset and go again. So there's a different parallel universe where that happens, but in this universe, the reigning defending champion is the one that wins out on the day.
Really good there from Cameron. You've mentioned about Ben. He did really well. Even though he did not appear in Baku, he did really, really well to finish off in the podium. And if anything, even though he did get a bit unlucky because the 3rd safety car, he was way better than he was on the 4th. But I think this cements Joe as Ben as a championship contender as well, along with the others. And, Wooly as well was also a person that had a good chance for the lead as well, but just didn't really happen after the pit stops. And despite one mistake Cameron had throughout the entire race, which he only dropped 2 positions, this is remarkably one of his, best races in an F1 car.
Absolutely. He does make that sort of one mistake. He gives you one chance to get in front of him and get away. He gave that, and he just did what he always did in it and came back into the race and ended up winning it. Ben, he does miss out on the sort of the drop round advantage, as it were, sort of not appearing in Baku. Cameron has definitely used it. There's no question about that, but we know he doesn't really need the drop round and doesn't really need to worry about it because he knows that he can just put on 7 performances and get the job done and the season done and dusted. What I was surprised about was Joe, that wall of champions just undoing him, taking off the front wing, and him dropping down. He didn't need a drop down last season. He ended up with, if we were doing a F1 season point style with no drop rounds, he would have been champion because he finished every single race either P1 or P2. It was a fantastic season for him. And it was only because of the drop round that he ended up losing the title. Now he has to use it. He just has to. He's in a position where that race was not going to be good enough to continue his title fight. He still has the P2 from Baku that he can carry over. But with that sort of advantage gone, that it can give you a sort of thinking, right, in future races, the next 6 races, I can drop one and still be A-okay for the rest of the season. This time, no, it is going to be all pressure for quite a few of these guys who are calling themselves championship contenders right now.
Yeah, it's the drop round gives you that barrier, which gives you that comfort. And, we've mentioned how Cameron has sort of used it up, but he has that confidence saying that he doesn't need it. So he's not really affected for it. But Joe did pretty well in Baku to recover from what was like a sprint DNF. So it's the possibility was we were talking about this in the commentary around how Joe might use this for his drop round, but now this for Canada, he's more than likely to use that for his drop round. So he's now coming into the remaining races where it's a do or die for him, where he has to finish on the podium, similar to what he did last season, in order to call out any chance for a championship hopes now. But I must say, like for Woolley, whenever Joe hit the wall, it was pretty much a godsend for him.
Absolutely. It's one of the contenders goes awry for the championship you're leading at that point. And it was chaos again around the street circuit. I tell you what, there were 3 drivers that held their heads and stayed cool. I think they ended up being the only 3 drivers to not have a penalty by the end of the race. And of course, they take up our podium. So let's start calling them in. 3rd place, last gen Newt during that, made the most of a few penalties to get into the podium positions. It's a very decent race for him. I think Baku, I need to check where he got in Baku in terms of last week. Give me a moment, I'll see. End Repic. Last gen Newt is 5th in the championship. And I tell you what, getting P3 in Canada, also very, very good to keep your season going and rolling. And I think he might be challenging Mad Dog for that P3 position overall in the championship. We'll have to see how things evolve, considering we are talking about 5 drivers challenging for the title. That top 3 is going to be a coveted position during the split.
Absolutely. I think he did really well. Hello, Last Gen.
Hello.
P3, your first podium actually this season, relatively from that because of you had no time penalties whatsoever. How hard was it, would you say, in comparison to the others, because they had 3 seconds and 6 seconds, and even Geek had 9 seconds, and he was around your position. How hard did you find it keeping it clean around there?
Well, I got 2 warnings on the first lap, so I had to be really clean for every lap after that. And I was just driving as safe as I possibly could. I didn't want to get any penalties because I knew a lot of people around me would be getting a lot of time penalties. So I knew that I'd get a good result because my pace was awful anyway. So I just tried to keep it as clean as possible.
Currently 5th in the championship. I think he'll jump up a little bit. What are you sort of expecting for the rest of the season? I mean, you were fantastic last season when we were watching you. I believe it was your rookie season as well, coming into BUSR. But what are your expectations for the rest of this split and season itself? I mean, being 5th and 3rd is a good way to start.
I think the top 3 with Cameron, Josh, and Ben they're going to be clear almost every race. So if I can be somewhere in the fight for P4, it'd be nice, but I'm not expecting the top 3 at any point unless there are more crashes or penalties. I can't crack the top 3 on pure pace. So.
And with the number of safety cars as well, it was a race about all of those losing your heads around you. You must keep yours, as the saying goes. It seemed to be that the case being the case for you, especially with the time penalties as well. You did keep your head, you kept it clean. At any point in the safety cars where you thought, oh, this could be a moment for strategy, or was it literally just, all right, keep it safe, keep it clean, and just route one the strategy towards the end?
Well, about halfway through the race, we were told that it was going to start raining near the end. So we knew that if there were a lot of safety cars, the rain would come before the end of the race, which it did. So there were some discussions of whether inters would be right at the end, but it didn't end up raining enough for the switch to inters. So yeah, it was just sticking on the mediums and trying to conserve them as much as possible for the end, because I know that Josh especially had a lot of tyre wear at the end, which is why he wasn't able to break the 3 seconds. So it was just about driving as safe as I could until the end.
Well, there you go. A big P3 for you last gen. You hopefully the season continues to be good for you. I mean, it's a great start. Might as well continue.
Thank you. It's been really fun.
Oh, fantastic race around Canada for last gen. But I tell you what, someone who has broken away a little bit. P2 in qualifying, P2 around the track, and potentially could have won this race with slightly different things occurring. Ben finishing in P2. Ben, an excellent qualifying, backed up with an excellent race. I have to ask, that second to last safety car you were starting to reel Cameron in, what were you thinking in that moment just before, as you sort of saw it, the tenths tick down in your delta?
Yeah, I thought I had the measure of him, but then he told me that just now that he hadn't used any of his battery, so it sort of puts that work to nothing. So, but yeah, no, I mean, from my side, it was a pretty clean, quiet race. I made a few moves in the first stint. Once the soft tires had degraded, and then just got a little lucky with the second safety car, but brought it home for second, which I can't be too unhappy about.
Having this been your BUSR debut, you've come in here and you finished in podium in what is your first race here in the F1 Championship, and you've excelled yourself as, well, to me and Alistair would say, a potential championship contender. I'm curious though, Ben, what's your hopes and goals for this championship up ahead, given this is your first season?
Well, I think after seeing the pace of everybody and how the race went today, I think my aim will be consistent podiums, or consistent top fives, let's say. But I do want to be in the fight for wins, obviously, and but I do think Cam is a pace level above me. So we'll see. I'll see if I can take a win here or there, but I'll see how it goes.
Well, he didn't win every race last split, so I reckon the door is open for you. I reckon you've taken a look at the calendar, and you've talked about wanting to take a few wins. Looking at the calendar for your first season, what races do you think, actually, you know what, I fancy myself around that track. I reckon I can just take a win here and there. Which ones do you sort of take a look at and go, yeah, those are ones for me?
Yeah, I mean, historically, I've been good at Austin and Spielberg, so those two tracks I enjoy driving, and I've had success there in the past. So if I can get up to a decent pace, then hopefully I can challenge Cam and the other guys and beat them.
Well, last gen you definitely thinks that you're a pace league above him, and if Cameron is pace league above you, that is terrifying. But I think still we'll take a look at those two tracks, Kota and Spielberg. So we'll definitely be looking for you to make inroads around those tracks. Unfortunately, with Baku, you have used your sort of drop round, as it were. You've sort of used that performance where you weren't there to sort of lose that. What's on your mind sort of going to these, 6 races to go now and sort of thinking, right, I can't make a mistake here. You want the consistency. Do you feel that pressure, or is it just sort of chill for you this entire season?
I mean, it would have been nice to have raced in Baku, but I know there's chaos there a lot of the time, and I saw that Cam didn't finish, so that might have been a chance at some decent points. But I mean, it is what it is. I think I can do the rest of the season. So if I can get consistent results, then that might be good.
Well, I think you escaped one set of chaos and joined another, considering how the timesheet looked at the end of the race there. Congratulations, Ben. I think that was a hard-fought P2, and I think I'll stand by what I said. I think in a parallel universe with that last safety car not happening, I reckon you could have reeled him in, maybe defended for the last few laps, and ended up winning. So we'll be looking out for Kota and Spielberg. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations on P2.
Thank you.
And now the reigning defending champion is back on top of the podium. Cameron Searle, P1 around Canada. Well, Cameron, last week was chaos. This week was chaos. But fortunately enough, you weren't the sort of the championship contender from last season, not to hit the wall in the end. So it ended
Luckily,
up you weren't. It wasn't quite attractive for you this race, the wall itself.
Don't look back at lap 5. That was a heart attack and a half. I was. You say pointing at the wall. I was pointing at the wall about 3 times in less than a corner. But yeah, no, much cleaner race after that point.
Resisted the urge.
I resisted the urge, yeah.
I mean, you're once again in a position where you've used up your drop round almost at not at Zandvoort, around Baku, like you did at Zandvoort. You're starting your championship charge in race 2 rather than sort of having a race, then off race, and then starting again. What are you looking at the rest of the season? What's sort of the mindset for you, Cameron? Is you're in pretty much the exact same situation as you were in winter.
I hope I'm not looking at the wall. That would be nice. Yeah, it's every race at a time now. But yeah, it's 10% less risk.
Having used your drop round over in Azerbaijan following your disconnection, would you say that you're coming into Montreal, you felt a bit of pressure, given that Montreal is fairly similar to Azerbaijan following your previous experiences?
I'd say less so. My track record here isn't great of being every time we've raced DNF. Thank you, Josh, for putting this on the calendar. I think he was trying to jinx it a little bit, but yeah.
The walls are close on this one.
Yeah, he's made the calendar with my historically bad tracks. But yeah, no, it's I like the track. It's a low grip track, which is where I tend to be fairly good at. I was thankful the rain came. That made it a bit nicer for me. Weirdly, but yeah, it's I knew it would be a bit closer, especially in quali, than Baku, but Baku wasn't clean on any point from me. So,
well, I think on commentary, AO and I have sort of made things out as there being 5 almost championship contenders, especially with that race. We've got Ben, Joe, Geek, who had a fantastic performance today. It was just a few safety cars just getting in the way. Got Josh as well, who won in Azerbaijan, both the sprint and the feature. You sort of look around you, there is going to be more contenders to your crown. Do you think that's going to help or hinder you going through this? I mean, there's going to be more people sort of tripping each other up.
Yeah,
as long as you stay ahead, you'll be fine. Is that the deal?
Yeah,
for you?
I think it's a very different championship to last time. Obviously, where me and Joe were won. Well, we won every race between the two of us. It's 23 versus 24 in real life reference. Got everybody dipping their toes in the winning pool a bit, and it should make it a bit more even.
This has been your first race of the season so far. So how are you looking for in terms of your championship chances, even given that there's, would you say, a more intense field, would you say, behind you?
I mean, well, first race I got past, first full race I got past turn 1. If I can run in the top 2, sort of top podium win, I should be okay. Yeah, as you said, it is a lot tighter. So yeah, there will be races that people take points off each other. So
And with the certain amount of safety cars, of course, around Canada, there were plenty of safety cars as well around Baku. There was a moment there that I thought Ben was chasing you down, but it's now been revealed you were saving quite a bit of battery.
Yeah.
Were you thinking? Every single safety car, every single restart, is thought, oh, Ben was actually chasing me down there. It's
yeah. So first half is sort of chill, try and spread the field out a bit. But yeah, those sort of last 3 restarts, it was either drop or save. I didn't manage to drop him on that second to last one. So yeah, it was then became all about saving battery in case he did mount an attack on the last few laps. But then obviously we got another safety car, and then it was sort of all reset, and then I did manage to get the jump on him just for the last few.
Well, the Canadian Grand Prix brought chaos, and Cameron somehow ignored every wall and staying out of trouble. So congratulations, Cameron. A big win for your championship charge this season. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, guys.
Well, there we go. The Canadian Grand Prix, I believe next week will be heading a bit close to home around Silverstone for the British Grand Prix in round 3. Ao, do you have any last thoughts about this Canadian Grand Prix other than it being complete chaos and full of penalties for everyone?
All I'd say is that if we got that fifth drop of rain, it would have been the greatest race of all time.
The 5th drop of rain, but perhaps around a British circuit, we can introduce a little bit more chaos to do with the weather. Thank you very much for joining us on BUSR this week. We'll see you all next time. And I believe we'll be seeing you on Monday for a little bit of Assetto Corsa. My brain's gone instantly as soon as I try to remember it. But that'll be going on Monday. But F1 on Saturday next week. Join us for that. We'll see you all next time.
And no moment in history where I could stand and say, I was pretty